Hello everyone, welcome to Sqorck Shorts. On this week's episode, I'm going to take a more detailed look at building color palettes. Okay, so I won't be able to show you everything I know about this subject just because it's a very complicated one and I use things that I've learned from color theory class and years of using color in all sorts of different mediums of art. But I can give you some basic tips that will help you in deciding what colors you want to use. So the first step I usually go through is figuring out my primary color, and this has to be something that I can use a lot of, so I need to have half slabs, stairs, and full blocks of this material. In general, I will either go with a stone brick or a wood color just because they're relatively neutral. You can use things like the normal brick and that will look great in some themes. Cobblestone can look good too if you have the proper secondary colors. Nether brick I don't use as often as a primary color just because it's really dark and it doesn't really go well with too many other blocks. So if you do use nether brick as your primary color in a color palette, then you'll want to make sure it's going to fit your theme and it's going to be a kind of evil dark style that you're going for. Again, the brick is also somewhat limited just because it is a more dominant color than the other base blocks here. And because of its dominant color, it won't work as well with some of the other detail blocks. Once you've decided on a primary color, the next step is to pick a secondary color, something that's going to complement and go with that. So for example, if I was to choose stone brick as my primary color, and I want a secondary for like a steampunk build, I may pick iron. In this texture pack, it's a dark color and it goes really well with it. If you were wanting something dark in a default texture pack, you could use a dark gray wool or something like that will go with it. And this just gives it a good contrast in between there, and then you can use find another secondary that would work well would be like spruce wood, and this works well as secondary because it's also, again, it's a darker color, and with the wood you'll have more option than if you were to use wool as your secondary. You can use your wool as a kind of detail block if you really wanted to. This largely is dependent on your theme, so if you were going with a deserty temple type theme, of course you'd go with some sort of sandstone base and then pick secondary colors that are going to be very strong. So you could do an orange color, or you could even do purple. Purple looks great with the sandstone. When selecting detail blocks, there's quite a few that are very neutral and you can use with just about any of the themes, and using detail blocks that are going to match and look well with your theme is important, but there's some that you can use more than others. So I'm going to go through and build some color palettes, and then I'm going to explain why I'm using certain blocks as opposed to other ones. So for our first one, I'm going to build a tree fort, basically, and this one I'm going to select a oak wood, and you can use any wood like birch or any of the other things, but oak will look better with the darker colors that I'm planning to use. So green wool will be my secondary, and green will just kind of match my leaves and kind of tie it into the tree a little bit. So this will be good for using as like backboard for details in walls and things like that. Yeah, then I'll use leaves a lot for details and things like that, so that will be part of my color palette. And oak leaves go well with the oak wood and the green wool. Next, I want something a little bit darker so that I can kind of tie these together. And since we're going with a primarily wood theme and a tree fort type thing, using spruce wood, it kind of changes it up so it's not just oak, but it's a lot darker and it fits the color palette really well, and it will look really good on like when I line the edges of a tree fort with the darker color like that. Alternatively, I could have used things like the lime wool and spruce wood, birch wood, and like spruce leaves, and you can kind of see if you're not careful, it's easy to make a color palette like this that's similar but not the same, and it doesn't look nearly as good because all of these over here have the same sort of tone and they blend together really well, but these over here kind of are contrasting, and in a bad way they have the wrong tones that just don't fit together as well. So now I want to build an ice fort. So I'm going to use ice as my primary, which is a pretty obvious one. Snow is really bright and white, and so that will go well with this. Then I can use wool if I want some dirty spots in the snow, so it's a little bit darker and a little bit grungier than the snow. Then I need something that will kind of tie in the color, the blue of the ice. And so having a gray with the blue diamond in the middle is going to have a lot of impact with the lack of color with the whites and the gray there. So having that just a little bit of color there and a little bit of color with my primary ice is going to help a lot. Alternatively, I could have used like a light blue wool and maybe a lapis or diamond block. But if I'm using ice as my primary here, and I was to use diamond or light blue or even lapis, it's going to be too much color, so I need to tone it back down a bit, and you'll notice that there's a very distinctive difference here between the light blue and lapis, which are pretty much identical colors, but the ice is not. The ice is more of a cyan color. So these are blue, light desaturated blue, but this is a very cyan, and the diamond is also cyan. So it's important to know that these two colors go together, these two colors go together, but they don't really go together apart from that. So these two don't match, and it will look a little bit funky. So that's why I chose the diamond and the ice to go together as my color, and then the rest to be just completely desaturated tones of light colors. Next, I'm going to build a simple deserty type thing. Deserts are really simple. You just need your primary sand, and you need a secondary color that's going to go well with it. And my favorite to go with the sand theme is the purple, and it just looks really good. Another block you can use that really goes well with this color scheme is glowstone, and it just looks really nice. Paying attention to the colors again, it matches the sand and the orange and tan type colors, and the darker browns will help complement the dark purple there. And this is a simple 3-color palette that you can add on to and add a little bit more detail, but it will be a really simple color palette. Okay, so for building a castle, I'm going to just go with a simple stone brick. Looks good. Then I need a nice, subtle secondary that's going to stand out against the gray, but not be overly dominant with color and overwhelming. So I'm going to choose lapis because it's a nice blue color. And then I can use more gray, like the chiseled stone or stone slabs, and this will just keep with the kind of gray castle type theme, good detail blocks, and still have a nice color in there with my lapis. You can really do any sort of color, but having something that's not going to be super bright or overly dominant will help. Next, I'm going to try and build an oriental theme, and this one I'll start with a wood base, and then I need a secondary, which I like birchwood if you're going with the lighter colors for it. Just looks nice. Then I'll need a color, and I can do something like pink if I was going to be doing like cherry blossom trees around, and that would kind of tie it into the environment around it. Or alternatively, you can go with dark colors too, like a red and black. Those I've seen in a lot of oriental builds. but I'm just going to go with the pink. Next, I'm going to try and make a dark castle, and this one I can either use stone brick or nether brick for my primary. I'll probably just do stone brick, then secondary will be nether brick. And then you'll primarily use dark colors and things that are just going to go and make it look even more evil and kind of work with that. You can also use lava as a color for your color palette in this situation. So you can kind of try and work with the oranges and stuff that's going to be in the lava. Same thing goes with water, in that you can kind of try and work with the water and make, if you're going to have a lot of like water around, you can work with the blues and make sure things are going to match and not clash with each other. That's about as much as I can help you guys with. I hope you learned something, and I hope it makes it a little bit easier when you're picking your colors. I know it can be very tricky, and if you do it wrong, it can really mess with your builds. So keep trying different things, experiment, and be conscious of what colors are going to work together. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time.